Hey guys, it's your teacher from home. I took the day off. I have been feeling pretty terrible all week, so I needed this day. However, I did need to teach you one last thing, and then I thought to myself, why not just use technology? As you know, you have a test tomorrow, and we also did our lab yesterday. Um, so our test is going to be on the circulatory system parts 1 to 4. Part 4 I'm going to teach you today. It's very short and it's an excellent supplement to everything we've been learning about. Um, Early in the week, I gave you a handout about blood. So over the holiday, you're going to make sure you complete the handout on blood. And then probably on Monday after the holiday, I'm going to teach you the lymphatic system and a little bit about the immune system. And then we're going to have a quest early in the week, and then we'll be finished the unit. The reason I decided to move blood and the lymphatic system to after the holiday is because I think that fetal circulation goes really well with everything we've been learning about the heart and the circulatory system. In order to understand fetal circulation, you first need to understand regular adult circulation and physiology. Guys, this has been a challenging unit. There is so much vocabulary, so many structures, and straight up we've been learning them together. So we have 2 quizzes. I hope you learned from your mistakes. You might have the same questions on your test tomorrow. Let's just remember the purpose of our lab, okay? Yesterday, it was to consolidate everything we've learned, okay? I was hoping that, you'd learn the structures, you'd learn the vocabulary, and then by actually seeing a real heart, touching it, examining it and looking at it from different angles, I really hope that the lab yesterday consolidated what we've learned, okay? But like I said, I'm not going to make this lab some giant assessment. I might do something with it after the break. However, what I've given you as a review is the lab questions, okay? The lab questions are review because the test is on the circulatory system and the heart, okay? So do your lab questions as a review. And then there's an agree-disagree worksheet as well, which is another great study guide. So I'm going to do a quick lesson on fetal circulation. Hopefully it doesn't take too long. So yeah, I'm going to do that now. So grab your notes, okay? So learning goals for today. I can identify the structures essential for fetal circulation. I can describe differences between fetal and adult circulatory systems. I can describe the flow of blood between a mother and child with reference to the umbilical cord and its vessels, the oval opening, and the venous and arterial ducts. Okay, the curriculum uses the terminology arterial duct and venous duct. However, textbooks, internet, other sources sometimes use the Latin version, which is ductus arteriosus or ductus venosus, which are interchangeable. So you guys need to be prepared to see both and understand what both mean. And then I know how and why the oval opening and the arterial duct close shortly after birth. So it's a really interesting topic. Fetal circulation. Here's a diagram, just a little bit of vocabulary. You can see the umbilical cord. The fetus is just another word for a tiny human inside another human. And then the placenta is an organ that sort of attaches the fetus to its mother and has specific functions as well that we're going to learn about. So first of all, as I'm sure you all know, fetal lungs are non-functional, okay? Babies are swimming in a little sea of amniotic fluid, they cannot breathe air. So the fetus relies on its mother for gas exchange. Remember, exchange meaning exchanging waste, carbon dioxide, for nutrients, oxygen. Oxygenated blood is delivered via the umbilical cord. Okay. Now the umbilical cord has veins and arteries. I chose just to call them vessels because it is a little bit confusing. Because if you're talking about coming from the mother, then it's an artery. But if you think about it going to the baby, then it's a vein. So I'm just going to call them umbilical vessels. Okay. So, blood will not actually enter the baby's lungs until the umbilical cord is tied and the lungs have expanded. So, after birth. Furthermore, fetal livers are non-functional. Okay? The fetus relies on the placenta and the mother's liver to clean waste products from its blood because its liver is non-functional. Most blood bypasses the fetal liver through a venous duct. Okay, there's an important vocabulary word, an important structure in fetal circulation, the venous duct, or you might hear it called the ductus venosus. So, how does fetal blood actually bypass the lungs? Well, let's remember, it's the left ventricle that pumps oxygenated blood to the rest of the body. Okay, that's a big idea, and it's very important to understand and to know. So, nutrient-rich blood, so oxygenated, comes from the mother, okay, and it arrives in the right atrium and moves to the left side of the heart through what's called the oval opening. So it arrives in the right atrium, and instead of going through the pulmonary circuit, or the lungs, it has to just move to the left side so that it can be pumped to the rest of the body. So by going through the oval opening, the blood bypasses the lungs. Any blood that enters the pulmonary artery is redirected or shunted to the aorta through what's called the ductus arteriosus or the arterial duct. So let's take a look at a diagram that will greatly help us understand. Let's look on the left side. Let's look at the foramen ovale, also known as the oval opening. I'm going to call it that. I think it makes a little bit more sense. So you can see that when the blood comes from the mother, it arrives in the right atrium, and then it goes to the left side of the heart through this oval opening. So, once again, blood moves from the right atrium to the left atrium through the oval opening. Why does this happen? It's because there's a high pressure in the right atrium. This high pressure occurs because it's the mother's circulatory system pumping the blood, and the lungs are not expanded. Okay, so blood moves from the pulmonary trunk to the aorta through the ductus arteriosus, or the arterial duct. So we have basically two ducts which shunt blood. We have the oval opening and the arterial duct. Okay, the ductus arteriosus is necessary because some of the blood will actually enter the right ventricle and get pumped, okay, because the heart beats. Why does blood enter the right ventricle? Well, there's a valve. There's a right AV valve, and there is high pressure blood inside the right atrium. So some blood will go into the right ventricle, and it will start making its way to the lungs, and then it will get redirected into the systemic circulation through the ductus arteriosus into the aorta. Now, it is important to understand that a small amount of blood will in fact enter the lungs. Okay, this is necessary for lung development. Okay, babies' lungs have to grow too, so they do need a little bit of blood supply. Okay, so after birth, when the baby takes its first breath, there is now a reversal in pressure between the right and left side of the heart. This reversal in pressure causes the oval opening to close, and this only takes several minutes. Okay, why does this happen? Well, the pressure inside the right atrium drops, and the blood begins to enter the right ventricle now and getting pumped into the lungs through the pulmonary trunk. As soon as oxygenated blood, as soon as oxygen enters the lungs, your body, the lungs actually themselves produce a special protein called bradykinin, and this protein begins to close the arterial duct. And this will take several hours, okay? So we have two openings that have to close. The oval opening is closed quickly, and it is because of that change in pressure. And the arterial duct, which will take several hours to close, will close because your body makes a special protein. So this is an excellent diagram that I really want you guys to take a long look at and study. On this diagram, you can see the difference between veins and arteries within the umbilical cord. Let's take a look at the ductus venosus. Okay, so this is essentially the way the blood bypasses the liver. So you can see in red the oxygenated blood being delivered to the baby. It will enter the heart through the lower vena cava or the inferior vena cava. So you can see that in red. You can see it kind of goes into the liver there, but it bypasses most of the liver to enter the heart on the right side, and then through the oval opening. Now, if you look down at the bottom right, you can see they're labeled as the umbilical arteries, and this is coming from the iliac artery in the lower, in the hip lower body region, and that's delivering the deoxygenated blood back to the mother. So take a good long look at this picture. Feel free to stop the video here and take a look at the colors, because I know your handout is not in color. Okay, so here's a gross looking placenta. The placenta is an organ. Its function is thermoregulation, so make sure the baby is not too hot, not too cold. Of course, waste and nutrient exchange occur, and in this organ, gas exchange is another function of the organ, and it does filter some of the blood itself. Okay, so here's a good diagram showing us the ductus venosus, which is essentially, the duct that bypasses the liver, and you can see where the blood from the mother enters the inferior vena cava, and you can also see the return of blood to the mother through the umbilical arteries. And you can trace the path of blood very well through this diagram, so feel free once again to stop the video here and take a closer look. Fetuses, like I said before, have a non-functioning liver. So the mother is responsible for essentially cleaning the blood. The placenta cleans a lot of the waste products from the blood that come from the baby. And then the mother obviously cleans her own blood before sending it to the child. So the nutrient-rich blood from the mother will bypass the liver through a shunt called the venous duct, which we've already seen. This allows nutrients from the mother to flow directly to the vena cava. And as we saw in the diagram, the venous duct attaches near the baby's liver but bypasses most of it. And it's important to understand that because it bypasses the liver, the mother has to be very careful about the food she eats, the chemicals she ingests, because chemicals ingested by the mother can seriously affect the baby because it's going directly into that fetus's bloodstream. So, summary. The big idea is nutrient-rich blood enters the fetus and bypasses the lungs by moving through the oval opening. So going from the right side to the left side through the oval opening. The blood is pumped into systemic circulation through the aorta by the left ventricle. Okay, just like in a normal adult. After circulating through the body, deoxygenated blood will flow back to the mother via the umbilical cord. And the mother is essentially reattached to the baby via the iliac arteries. Remember, the ilia is the big bone in your hips. So nutrient-poor blood enters the umbilical vessels through the iliac artery. And up at the top, nutrient-rich blood enters to the vena cava. And that's it. So feel free to, I'll throw this video up on the FTP right now and the PPT as well. Please focus on these questions. Talk to each other. Use your quizzes. You know the mistakes you have made. You know what you're good at and what you're not good at. And the reason I'm giving all these quizzes before the test is so you learn from your mistakes and you don't make them again. Okay? Our first quiz, was a self-assessment. You guys did this question. Some of you got, just a few marks out of 18. You need to be able to do this question. Good luck, and